I'd like to talk about drum set styles. You know, we can have all the technique in the world, we can have a great drum set, wonderful cymbals, but if we don't understand style, then we really can't play with anyone. So I'll try to bring us through the three major styles, which would be rock, Latin, and jazz. You know, for each style of music, there's really a note value or a subdivision that you really have to understand. For example, in rock music, the subdivision might be thought of as quarter notes, or eighth notes, like your hi-hat pattern, or 16th notes. If you're playing a funk chart or something that's a little more syncopated, you might have 16th notes. So the first thing I want to mention is you really have to understand the subdivisions. So we'll start with rock. So we have our subdivision of eighth notes, quarter notes, but as with any style, each style of music requires a certain amount of independence. The coordination exercises required for the different styles of music differ. So in a rock setting, we really have to focus on the independence between the hi-hat, the snare drum, and the bass drum, but we need to determine what are the focal points for this music. I would say that of all the elements of the drum set, the bass drum and the snare drum are the most important elements in a rock style. So there are plenty of books and DVDs out there that address this style, but let me just give you one little exercise to get rock independence going. We want to have strong hi-hat strokes. We want to have nice strong bass drum strokes with the full stroke on the bass drum. We want to have solid backbeats on the snare drum. So none of these half strokes and little taps. We want to really get some good backbeat going. We might also want to employ the rim on the snare drum to get a nice edgy sound. So here's a little warm-up routine in the rock style. We're subdividing eighth notes. We're going to start with hi-hat, bass drum, bass and snare, and then add the hi-hat again. So we'll be able to concentrate on each limb, bringing out the strength in the limb, and then we'll bring everything together at the end. But the most important thing is the solid time feel and the groove. So here we go, eighth notes, hi-hat, bass drum, bass, snare, all three. 1, 2, 3. This exercise just kind of lets you focus on one limb at a time and add them, you know, as you go. So you can do this at different tempos, and you know, if you mess up any of the limbs, like if you play the hi-hat too weak or the snare drum too weak, you can hear that very easily with this kind of exercise. What I would do with any style of music is start playing music right away. So hopefully you can back up coordination exercises like this with true songs and be part of a band, because that's really what it's about, being able to cop the style and be part of the band. Now, what kind of independence do you need in rock? Well, we need the independence between bass and snare drum, but to be more specific, what we really need to do is come up with alternative bass drum patterns. So maybe the first types of exercises you might work on are to come up with alternative bass drum beats. I'll just play a few and I think you can get the idea. Our snare drum is just going to remain on 2 and 4 because that's its primary function in this style. And our hi-hat is going to really remain with either quarter notes or eighth notes. So right now I'm going to focus this exercise on expanding my bass drum independence. So, as I mentioned, there are plenty of materials out there that focus on bass drum technique in a rock style, focus on hi-hat technique and alternate hi-hat patterns. But the main thing in the rock style is to have these three elements functioning at the same time, yet knowing the hierarchy. If the hi-hat's played too loud and the bass drum too weak, then you're never going to sell the groove. And sometimes younger players don't understand that. So let me play kind of a not very good rock feel. Well, that sounds horrible for a lot of reasons. Bass drum's not very solid, snare drum backbeats were up by the rim, and the hi-hat was kind of ugly as I was getting the shoulder of the stick and just pounding it. So there's lots of things that are in play when we're trying to make this style come to life. So I think that's about as far as I'd like to go. Just think about getting good sounds from the instrument and playing with tracks and recordings and books as soon as possible so you learn how to become part of the band and you understand the subdivisions. Finally, in a rock setting, it's so fundamental that the drummer work with the bass player. So you have to listen to the bass parts as you start working on your rock grooves, because that will start to give you more ideas and you'll be able to come up with more variations on your grooves. So understand the big picture and listen to the music, enjoy the music, play along, and have fun with the music of the day, rock music.